Right, okay, welcome back to Talking Candid. We're here today with Tom from Reason 8 Agency. So welcome to the podcast. It's really good to have you here.
No, thank you for having me. Great setup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this podcast takes us and what we end up talking about.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. So Tom, tell me a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
So in a nutshell, in the simplest terms possible, I build websites for a living. It's something that I've done professionally and as a hobby for about 13 years, which is funny because 13 years ago I hated IT. So when I was at school, dropped it as a subject. I remember specifically doing the HTML and CSS in Notepad and was bored, hated it. And then somehow fell back into dabbling with websites when I was 17, tried to build a couple of things, went to uni, and in all the jobs and the degree that I've got, I was always dabbling with websites on the side, just having to play around and see what I could do. And then decided to take it full time. And it's one of them things that I wish I did maybe 4 or 5 years before. It's all about timing, isn't it? I guess if I did do that, it might not be where it is now. I might not have been as mature or whatever. But so we build websites, mainly WordPress websites for a wide range of businesses, from e-commerce websites to one-man band websites like electricians, plumbers, builders, all the way up to larger established businesses across a wide range of industries like finance, insurance. So we don't have a particular niche or anything like that. We tend to work with lots of different industries, and that isn't necessarily by design, but I like being able to learn about lots of different industries, and I can take knowledge and experience and skills from one project into another and kind of bring value that way. So we've just entered our 4th year, grew quite a lot last year, and looking at growing the team this year as well. So my business is growing pretty quickly. It's exciting times. And in terms of the websites, we do design, we do development, and we also do the maintenance side of it and the marketing side of it as well. And again, that isn't limited to any particular niche. We do SEO, website maintenance for anyone who kind of doesn't have that tech savviness, because a lot of people that work with businesses like ours will probably say they're not very tech savvy. They're kind of happy to offload that. So we now offer the website maintenance service as well. Kind of within that, we do the hosting. And as part of that is all the managed upgrades and like the best performance optimization you can get for a really good website. So that's basically what we do on a day-to-day basis. And we've been doing that for 3.5 years professionally, and we're in our 4th year now. So yeah, it's going well.
Sounds good. And it's a lot of pressure and weight, I can imagine, being a business owner and starting your own company. Understanding your journey from when you started to do website 13 years ago. Obviously, that was a very different world back then. And now it seems easier than ever to, have access to different tools where you can create websites and you can do branding and you can do SEO. How hard has it been to sort of handle the business side of things? Because I know there's a lot of different creatives that I know that have been in the job for a while, and they've grown to a certain point where they want to start their own business, but don't necessarily understand the challenges that come with that.
Yeah. I think for me, just being totally honest, I was in a very fortunate position financially, which made it a lot easier. So at the time, I did have a mortgage, very small. I didn't have a little boy at the time either, so it was just myself and my wife. And ultimately, I didn't pay myself in the business for the first 5 or so months. I was just building my bank account and stuff. So it was actually my accountant that said, yeah, you need to pay yourself now. I'd have been happy just to keep going. So having that buffer definitely made it a lot easier. Whereas I understand a lot of people, especially if they're living on their own, they've probably got bills that are totaling $1,500, $2,000 a month. You're probably not going to reach that in terms of money that you can take home for a few months, and you can't rely on that. So that's the first thing that I kind of want to note about my journey, is that I've been very fortunate from the outset to have that kind of buffer and that fallback, that if it did go wrong, it didn't really matter. And so that's, in terms of starting the business, that was kind of my fallback. But I wouldn't class myself as an entrepreneur, because I think my definition of an entrepreneur is someone who takes a banana and sells it as a milkshake. So they actually take one thing and turn it into something else. I don't even like the term businessman really. But it's like I'm taking all the softwares that have already been built and I'm just trying to create something out of that for somebody else. I'm not taking an actual thing and turning it into something completely different. So I think I've always had it. I don't know where it comes from, but like, for example, when I was 8 years old, I got a pool table, and rather than play on it, I jumped on Microsoft Publisher on my mum's computer and then started making leaflets to try and hand out to people to come and pay to play on my pool table. Thankfully, my mum stopped me as I was going out the door with loads of A4 sheets of paper and said, "What are you doing?" So thankfully that didn't go ahead, but don't know where that came from. And then I've always just wanted to challenge myself and work for myself as well. So I think when you have that kind of passion, you roll with the punches a little bit more. I think if you go into it from a perspective of, I'm doing this just to make money, which we all do, but that's, yeah, I think if you go into it with the wrong intentions, the punches and the obstacles and all that kind of thing can be 10 times worse and therefore harder to get over. Whereas, again, with my fullback, it was a little bit easier. But if something didn't work or if something went wrong, or, you know, if I was trying to do something that didn't necessarily work the first time, it didn't have a massive effect because it was just me in the business and basically currently still is. But yeah, in terms of like starting a business and all that kind of thing, there is lots of obstacles that you will have to come over that you can't plan for in the very beginning because you don't know they're going to happen. And a lot of them can be out of your control. It might be a client that's not paid on time and you're then having to kind of redo your cash flow and all that kind of thing. I'm having this problem at the minute where you're chasing someone for a payment, or you're waiting for all these leads to come in and then they all decide to come in at once and then you've not kind of accounted for that. So there's these little challenges. They're great challenges. But on your day-to-day, they can have an effect because then you have to prioritise and you have a priority list in your head and everything kind of shuffling all the time. And, you know, depending on what kind of level you want to take your business into, whether you're just happy to kind of stay by yourself or if you're looking to grow a team, those obstacles, like I say, again, can be heightened or exaggerated based on what your kind of end goal is. So, yeah, for me, in a weird way, I do kind of enjoy the challenges because then when you crack it and get over it, not only have you learned something, but you've kind of got that little stroke to your ego to say, yeah, I was able to get over that. And that's why I said that the timing was everything. Because if I did it, I started the business, I'm 29 now, so I started when I was 25. If I started it when I was 21, 22, I probably wouldn't have been mature enough to roll with those punches and I'd just given up, especially coming straight out of uni. So, yeah, I think it is about timing. A lot of it is about luck. And I think the creative industry is so difficult because it's, especially with websites, there's so many variables and it's quite low barrier to entry as well. So, you know, for example, your nan could start a Wix account and then go, my nan builds websites for £100 a pop and then someone will go and use her. I had this recently. I was talking to a nursery owner and I was like, yeah, we can do this for your website. You know, we can get loads more children basically into your nursery. I quoted her and then she said, oh yeah, I've got a quote for £100. I'm going to give it to him because I want to give him a chance. It's like, yeah, but your current one costs 300. You're just going to go backwards. So it's very low barrier to entry and you can be undercut on price very easily. And I think websites is a funny one, probably the same with SEO as well, you can tell me, but people know that they need it. They don't know where to start, but they can also get in their own way a little bit as well. So it's like, oh yeah, my mate down the pub told me that I need to have this on my website and this for SEO and all that kind of thing. And I appreciate that his mate might be an SEO, might be a website designer.
One size fits all though.
It's not, no. And everything we do is based on data. So, and you know, for me especially, because design is so subjective, it can be a fine line. So if a client says to me, I need a classy and modern website, but he's in his 60s, based on his demographic, we might have a different interpretation of what that actually means. So we have to have something kind of down on paper to try and understand what you're kind of trying to achieve and what you're looking for. So it is subjective. It's on a project by project basis. And, you know, people can get in their own way from things that they've heard or things they've read online. Whereas people like us, we're doing websites and SEO every single day. And we're learning from our own mistakes and our experience. That's where, that's where our value comes in. So, if people listening to this or watching this are looking to do SEO, paid advertising, offline advertising, website, PR, whatever, you might know you need it, but you need to find an expert to help you do it if you don't think you can do it yourself. I live by the mantra of pay once or pay twice. So if you pay cheap and go for an amateur, you're probably going to get the amateur results, and then it's going to take an expert to undo it all, which is going to cost more money. And then you're going to do it properly anyway, especially with SEO, because, if you go cheap on SEO and you get dodgy backlinks or whatever and all this kind of stuff, and you have to explain to someone, look, the domain authority might be great, that's 66 or something, but it's a really dodgy website and you don't want to be linking from there because Google will see that and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people know that they need what they need, but they don't know how to execute it. And that's where people like us can come in and help with that, hopefully.
I always think that people know they need it as well, but they don't know how to value it. And so over the the years that I've spoken to business owners, because I've been in similar situations to you, where you're on the phone with someone and you're like, okay, this is what we can do and this is the price, and they get a bit of sticker shock and they're like, whoa, that's way more than I thought it would be. I know I need SEO, but I didn't know it cost that much. And so it's like, okay, well, I need to convince this person that there is a lot of value behind what we do. And it's not necessarily saying, oh, we'll do this much work and do this much work. It's actually saying, if we achieve these rankings in these positions, this is what it could generate for your business in revenue. But there are people that will get a quote for £100 a month, or like, oh, I found a guy on Fiverr who can do it for really cheap. And, is all I say is, go for it. But come back in 6 months, because you will be coming back in 6 months. And then they're like, oh, okay. And they're like, maybe I shouldn't do it then. Because I'm like, you will come back to me in 6 months and say, they've messed it all up. I was like, so you go for it. I can't stop you from doing that. It's too cheap of a quote. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. What you're trying to solve here is a big problem, and that requires a big effort. So it's up to you on what you want to do. And a lot of people will go and they'll pay the cheap quote and they'll come back and be like, oh yeah, okay, you were right. But some people do come back, and I just think it's because they lack the education on how to value those kinds of services. And it's the same with websites. People know what a nicely designed website looks like because they shop on Apple or Boots or whatever it may be. And they're like, oh, that's really nice. I want mine to kind of look like that. But they don't understand the work that goes into building a product or a website that big.
Definitely.
So I think that's kind of my perspective.
Probably been tainted by off the shelf.
Templates you can just install and put your logo on. Exactly. And I spoke to someone about this the other day, and he said, this guy had a website on Vistaprint. Like, I didn't even know they did websites, and you go on it and it's an absolute bomb. It looks like a bomb's hit it. It's dreadful. Thankfully, I managed to sort it out, and his website's now popping. But just like all these platforms, like Webflow is a good one. I've never used it, but I can appreciate that it's good. For me, using WordPress, I can make it do whatever I want it to do. It's so open source. Whereas people, when they go, oh yeah, I'm just going to build a website on Wix, and I say something very similar, that's fine, but you are the end user. You can't, you don't have a lot of control over stuff, and you are quite limited. And I get why, people in the short term, especially if they're starting the business, they might just go for something like that as a stopgap. But I believe that if you're starting a business and you need a website, don't go cheap on it, because you're going to spend all the time and effort marketing your business as a new business, and some people will land on your website or whatever and it's crap. That's going to set the impression regardless of what else you're doing. So I had a conversation with a guy 2 days ago actually about SEO. So he messaged me and basically said I built his website for him, and he was like, can you just give me access to the site? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, who does it need to go to? What's it for? And he found an SEO company that claimed they were based in Canada that his mate had used, and it's like £180 a month. I was like, okay, more than happy to give you the access or whatever. And I said, just out of interest, like, what are they offering and what are they doing? And he told me the name of the company. I did some research, and every single review on Google that wasn't... So it turns out this company was actually based in Pakistan. Every single review that wasn't from Pakistan was 1 star. And I said to him, like, just so you know, this is the company that you're looking at working with and spending £200 a month of your hard-earned money with. Here's my price and I'll do it better for you. And I'm UK based and I do it every day. And he was like, oh, well, I've paid it now, so I'll just give it a go. And I was like, okay, well, if they, can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
If they fuck it up, if not, you can just beep it. If they fuck it up, that 2 months, that might take 6 months to undo. And then you're paying someone else 6 months just to undo all that work that they've done and messed up. And you're going to be back to square one again. So just do it right, do it properly. If you have to save a little bit more money to invest in a proper SEO company or website person or whatever, just do it properly. I've worked with people that have invested thousands on websites over the years and believed it was good. I worked with a laser clinic in Nottingham. And she was like, yeah, I spent $3,500 on this website. And it was like, she had a menu up here, then she had a hamburger menu down here on a desktop site. And then there was a moving banner that had incorrect text in it. And then there was just stuff all over the place. I rebuilt her website, and that was about 2 years ago. And she said to me, I'm never going to need to invest in a website again. So that, I think it was like $4,500 that I charged her for the website. If she'd done that in the first place, she would have saved all the other money that could have been invested in something else in the business. So yeah, our industry's a bit of a funny one, I think, because you can scroll through TikTok or Instagram Reels and someone will be talking about SEO and all that kind of thing. And they might be an expert in it, but then people are seeing lots of different things and forming their own opinion of what it is. And then it's our job to kind of either agree or disagree and try and unravel it somehow and give them the right information and advice. So, yeah, the digital and creative industry is a little bit of a funny one. And as I say, it is so subjective. If I build a website for someone I think is great, the client ultimately might not think it's great. And then I've got to rebuild it to what they want. And I'll say, look, here's what I've done. Here's my reasons for doing this. If you want me to change it, more than happy to do so, because at the end of the day, it's your business and your money. And if I do that, you then can't come back to me and complain that it's been done wrong.
Exactly,
so, yeah, it's a funny industry that we're in. Very lucrative and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, low barrier to entry and everyone thinking they can do it just because they've done it for a couple of weeks and they've done a Udemy course on it. They think they can do it. So yeah, it's a strange one, I think, our industry, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think one of the interesting questions that I had for you is, I feel like within our industry, because we're very specialist in terms of offering SEO and paid, and we're now expanding into digital PR actually as well. We used to do websites when we were around about 15 years ago when we first started as a company. And it's a very complicated job because you need developers, you need designers, and then you've got other teams and then they disagree with each other. And I've always found that there's a little bit of a disconnect between people who do SEO and people who do website design and development. Yeah. And so when we work with businesses and they're doing a new website and we handle the migration and SEO side, there's always a little bit of a clash there between opinions on what the right thing is to do. Do you think that website designers and developers need to have SEO skills, or do you think it's best left to someone who's dedicated their life to SEO?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, that, because every developer and designer is so different, and they've all got different personalities, right? So I think, some people might disagree, but website people, like website designers, developers, whatever, by nature are typically introverted people with poor social skills. And I've come across loads of developers like that I try and work with.
I agree.
And they're an absolute nightmare because they just can't communicate with you. So I'm trying to kind of like break that stigma a little bit. But I've worked with loads of clients. I work with SEO agencies and build websites on behalf of their clients. And it's like, okay, well, we've done this on their website. We need to ensure that any work that we've done on this website needs to be migrated over to this one to make sure we don't lose anything. Now, if I didn't have that knowledge or those expertise, probably compared to them, an intermediate level, that would make, number one, working with me a lot more difficult. And number two, it'd make their job a lot more difficult as well. So I believe that every developer and designer should at least have a very basic understanding of SEO, even if it is just through a plugin like Yoast or Rank Math or something, just to understand how things work and, anything from keyword research to actually implementing it and, creating landing pages for certain keywords or locations or whatever. I think that basic level of understanding, I think you definitely have to have. I think, obviously, with you guys and the work that you probably do, especially with the PR side of it as well, like for me, PR is not something I'm interested in or not something that I'd get into. So if someone came to me and wanted the SEO side but needed it to be at that level, I wouldn't be the right person for that. The level of SEO I kind of do is just the typical kind of on-page and off-page stuff, like the very fundamental basic things that probably take someone from page 10 to upper page 2 and then eventually slowly onto page 1. Yeah. But when you're doing all the PR and all that kind of stuff, it's highly accelerated. But to go back to your question, I think developers and designers should definitely have at least a basic understanding of it. And, Udemy courses aren't the best, but if they need a basic understanding of it, you can easily find all that information online. And for me, I've never done a course or anything like that. I never did a course how to build a website. Never done a course on SEO. Never done a course, I don't do it, but like Google Ads, for example, I've got a basic understanding of it and how to, integrate Google Tag Manager and all that kind of thing. That's just from years of dabbling and playing around with things and just seeing how things do work or don't work. And that's where the experience of that side comes in. If you're kind of new and fresh to it, you either, number one, learn how to do it via a course and have an expert show you how to do it, or you do dabble, but it's going to take a lot longer. Yeah. And a lot of people, especially nowadays, if they're starting a business and they're doing websites, they might not have the time to then learn about the SEO if they're not trying to sell it. So if there are any kind of web designers or developers listening to this and they don't have a basic understanding of SEO, I would say to at least invest some time into it, even if it is just, you know, not a course or something like that or playing around yourself, but speaking to experts or companies or all that kind of thing to understand how they do SEO and how they can factor it into their own work and kind of keep that in mind for the future. I definitely think people should consider that and invest in that if they can, both time and financially.
Yeah, I would love to see more like website designers and developers have, you know, that basic understanding, as you say, but also like try and work with other specialist companies that do SEO, because, you know, when you start to get a client base that is like, you know, quite large, they're quite authoritative businesses, they're very established. You know, if you worked with, I don't know, say B&Q, and you as a website designer and developer and you was doing their website, and for some reason B&Q didn't have an SEO expert on board, and you was to rebuild the website from the ground up based on all of their needs, and you're solving all the challenges and problems with their current site, and then you're ready to deploy it, and you set it live, and you're like, great, we've done an amazing job, it's done really well, and then they call you up and go, we've migrated the website and we've lost all of our rankings because all of the content's changed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen more often than I would like to, where it's like the website designer, for whatever reason, because he's freelance or solo, or because he's just not experienced enough, has, you know, done a website and migrated it, not done the redirects, not considered that the content is changing dramatically, not looked at the structure to see how much that was changing. And they didn't really advise on a consultative basis on, well, if we do all of this, there will be an impact to your current SEO because you are changing a lot of things. So therefore, I recommend that we get someone on board because the knowledge of that sort of stuff goes beyond my own remit.
Yeah.
So I wish that would happen more often to avoid that pitfall. But I guess it's a bit of both, really. It's the client's, first of all, knowledge on what would actually happen if we did migrate, and who do we need to ensure that we mitigate any possible losses in rankings and in conversion rates, etc.
Yeah.
And then also, I think for like website companies and designers to be like, we will also need to consider this, and we do it or we don't. And if we don't do it, here's some options on who you should work with. If we do it, we need to put that and factor that into our quote.
Yeah.
I wish I'd seen more of that.
Yeah. I think website people are quite funny by nature as well, because they typically, and this is, again, a stigma I'm trying to break and not implement into my own business, but a lot of them will go, right, well, I've sold that website now and I've built it, so that client can go and I'll just have the next one on the, you know, on the train coming in. Whereas myself, I'm trying to build it long term, because a big part of my business last year was SEO agencies, social media agencies that would, we need someone, they have a customer come to them and say, oh yeah, we want to do SEO, but they've not even got a website, they've got a rubbish one. They would then pass that over to me. I'd build the website, liaising with the agency to make sure it works for them. Yeah. And then we'd, do it as a collaborative project. Whereas I think most website designers, because they're quite happy to just sit at home with headphones on and not necessarily speak to anybody. And this isn't all of them. But they'll just do what they need to do to a basic level, build the website and go, okay, well, I've done your website now, let's get the next client in and build their website. So yeah, for me, it's more of a long-term relationship thing where doing it properly and making sure, if it does take more time, making sure everything's done properly, because like you've just said, the last thing that I would want, whether it's the agency that I'm partnered with or the client, to come back and say, we were first for this and now we're 90th and we've lost everything. Because then you could be liable to have a financial hit in that respect. So yeah, I think going back to the website designers and developers stage, I think to not be a jack of all trades, but to have a basic understanding of lots of other areas of digital marketing can help with websites as well, because then you kind of build your sites with that in mind. Like if you know nothing about SEO, then you're not going to, at a basic level, when you build a site, you're not going to make sure there's H1 tags or anything like that, or internal links or anything. Whereas if you do have that understanding, even if you're not doing the SEO on a long-term basis, provided that everyone's happy with it, you can start to implement all that kind of thing on people's behalves and go, look, this is what I've done. Are you happy? Oh yeah, you've gone the extra mile. Thank you for that. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to build. A lot of other companies do that. A lot of other website designers are like that. I'm not speaking for all of them, but a lot of them can just be like, well, I built your website now. You can go and sort out the SEO, and I'll just build the next website that just comes in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's easier. Because they're not experts in it. They don't want to have to learn about it. They'll just you're paying them for that. You go and do that.
Hoping that they're not asked about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. So
face value website building.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I try and go the extra mile for everyone. So if once someone was referred for SEO or by a social media agency, for example, I would build that in mind of, right, well, the social media agency passed this over to me. It's highly likely they're going to be doing Facebook ads, Google ads or whatever. I need to kind of bear that in mind when I'm building the site, whether it is through the links or the URL structure or whatever. Just basic levels of understanding like that can not only make the website a lot better, but it can actually give you a much better reputation because it then gives the impression that you're going the extra mile for people and doing things properly as an expert.
With your clients, what would you say the level of understanding of SEO is when they approach you?
Minimal, quite low. Yeah. So again, it's one of the things, they know they need it and they think they know what it entails, but they don't actually 100% understand it. Like I say, they'll talk to a mate down the pub. I was like, oh yeah, I've got someone in Pakistan doing my SEO for me. I've got really good results and stuff.
I've heard that so many times. Honestly.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then they'll come to me and they'll start talking to me about it. It's like, okay, well, they might be great, but just be aware. And they're not all in Pakistan. Some of them could be in the UK. But you've just got to be so careful because the smallest mistake could cost you thousands or millions depending on the size of your business. And the level of knowledge of people that come to me, in terms of the website side, again, they know what they want. They can't bring it to life, but a lot of them will say they're not very tech savvy. So they'll say, look, I don't mind how it's done, because ultimately they don't care what you build it in. As long as they've got a website that they like the look of and it works and they can show to customers. They don't care if it's WordPress, Wix, Webflow, Squarespace, built from scratch, whatever. But they know they need it. And with SEO, I think everyone thinks, I want to be at the top of the Google, the first page on Google. It's like, but everyone wants that. That's if everyone had that, there wouldn't be a number one. And that's basically how it works. It's you're constantly battling with other people, and there's lots of variables that we can't control and some that we can, that will influence how you rank and where you end up. And I always say to people, look, the first 3 months is going to be finding out probably what works and what doesn't work. Maybe longer, depending on how big the business is and the industry you operate in, location. Like if you're a plumber in London, there's probably going to be thousands of them.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be all competing for that number one spot for obvious reasons. But if you're a plumber in Hinckley in Leicestershire, where I am, town of 40,000 people, there's probably quite a few plumbers, but they're probably not all doing SEO or they're not investing in it. So you've probably got more of an opportunity. So there's lots of these variables that people have to take into account when they're looking at SEO. And I always say to people, we do SEO. It's going to take a while. I can't guarantee the result at the end of it. You've got Google Ads, which you can put 100 quid in today and you'll be at the top.
Yeah.
But as soon as you turn that money hose off, your website then disappears. And actually, I believe a lot of people scroll past the adverts because I could go and I'm not a plumber. I could go and start a plumbing company tomorrow and put it at the top of Google and I'd get leads coming through. Because people will believe that's who I am.
You could just outsource it too.
Exactly. I could do. Yeah. Just I get the lead, pass it over to Dave the plumber and keep the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But with SEO, it's a lot more organic. It's a lot more based on reputation, and I'm sure you guys know a lot more about that than I do in terms of the intricacies of that. But because it's a lot more organic, I believe you get a better return on investment from it. So there's pros and cons to everything, basically, I think.
Yeah, there's just so much red tape because, I think the small business owners are definitely the most vulnerable, especially all the ones that I've spoken to that have either used someone abroad or they've used someone on Fiverr. Just are a really small business. They might have up to 5 members of staff. There might be a plumber that might sell T-shirts or bread or bakery stuff. And they know they need it, but they don't know how to value it. And I think for them, there's so much red tape around what SEO is that they get misled by all of the bad actors in our industry that turn around and say, pay me £200 a month and I'll get you to the top of Google. Because they believe... The small business owner believes that somehow this person's going to pay him £200 a month and they're going to call up Google and go, oh, hi, I'll give you a payment if I get top of Google. And, shocker, that's called Google Ads. Yeah. Right? But they think organically that's what us SEOs do. Yeah. I had a guy call me, and I think I told Giuseppe about this as well. And this was a couple of months ago. It might have been at the start of the year, actually. And he rang me up and said, "Oh, you offer SEO services?" So I went through the usual process of like asking questions, making sure that he's the right fit for us. And he basically went to ramble on to say, "Oh yeah, I'll pay you if you give Google a call and you tell them that I'm a really good business and that I want to be at the top of Google for this keyword." And I was like, excuse me, what do you mean? And he was like, that's what you do, isn't it? You speak to Google, you've got a relationship with them, you can get me to the top of the results. And I was like, are you talking about Google Ads? And he was like, no, I'm talking about SEO. I'm talking about organic results. And he was like, how does anyone else achieve top position rankings? And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to explain this in the detail that I need to because it's so complicated. But I think because he's worked with so many people who have been like, I'll just get to you top of Google if you pay me this money, that everyone's so confused on how you actually do it.
Yeah, I think that's they're just being told what they want to hear, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've made the mistake in years gone by when I wasn't necessarily clued up on SEO. I paid on Fiverr years and years ago for another business that I had at the time to do SEO for me. And the traffic was growing and all that kind of thing. But then when I looked at like the quality of the backlinks, for example, like again, domain authority, I know there's terms like trust flow and all that kind of thing they're relatively good. But then when you actually click on the link, it was like I had a listing on a Pokemon website, then a Christian church forum.
Yeah.
And then you pay that. Funnily enough, I had a business-to-business data company come to me and say, I'm doing SEO with this company at the moment. I think they were in like Asia. And I'm looking to move to someone in the UK. Can you do an audit for me? And I did an audit, and probably 99% of the backlinks on her site were Japanese porn, just like dark web style backlinks.
Yeah.
And I said, there's probably a 0.01% chance that we're going to be able to disavow this and remove it from linking with your site because it's been there for so long. And she had no idea.
Yeah.
So she obviously came to me looking to move someone in the UK, and I said, well, you've got this problem. And I said, I don't know if it was the right advice, but you're probably better off just scrapping the website you've got currently and just starting again with a new domain.
Sometimes it's
just
the case,
fresh.
yeah.
Because
if you've got a penalty, it's game over.
Exactly.
You know, Google are never going to trust you again, pretty much, if you've done something dodgy and you've tried to cheat the system, or you've got something that's like dark web linking back to you and it's been on there for a while. They might just go, this isn't a safe website. Here, you've got a penalty.
Yeah.
And then you might as well just start from scratch at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And I always say to people, I believe your website is and should be your number one marketing tool. So if you are doing SEO and all these other digital or offline marketing techniques and you're driving people to your site and it's not very good, then you're kind of undoing all your hard work. So thankfully, that's where most of my referrals come in. But if someone comes to me and says, oh yeah, do you do SEO and stuff? I'd look at their website first. If it's decent, I had a guy look recently based in Tamworth, not far from me. He ran a food delivery company basically. And he put out on LinkedIn, I'm looking for someone to help me with digital marketing. Can someone help me? And I was like, well, I do websites. So I do SEO at a relatively basic level compared to what you guys do. I know someone that can help you with digital market in terms of paid advertising, can help you with that side, the PR side as well, social media, whatever. I did an audit of his website in terms of the design and performance, and he was doing like 30 grand a month in sales, and the website was shocking. And I said, well, imagine what you could achieve with a better looking website, and then you start to drive more traffic via SEO, whether it's through blog content or landing pages or whatever. You could probably take that 30 realistically to 40 and beyond. I even built him a mock-up website that was really good, I believe, and he wasn't interested in it. He didn't do any of it. And it's like, well, if you do what you've always done, you're just going to get the same results. And don't get me wrong, 30 grand a month, that's not a bad business, but there's clearly potential there to take it a lot higher. And he was getting in his own way, and he wasn't willing to invest in it, or again, didn't understand the value of what a new website would do, how the SEO works in terms of building authority and building trust, not just with Google, but with people that are searching for what you offer.
Yeah.
Flip side to that, I do SEO for a meal prep company that I did do a website for, where people can subscribe, build the meal plans and stuff. It's only taken about 2 or 3 months, but they're now starting to get sales organically from Google. So their relatively small investment every single month is now paying for itself. And then anything after that is pretty much pure profit and revenue. So Once it works, like I said previously, it is a massive return on investment. And I always say to people in terms of the backlinking strategies and stuff that Google basically looks at it that if that website links to your website and Google, let's say for example, the Candid Sky website was trusted by Google and you link to my website, Google would probably then see me as someone trustworthy because they trust you. It's exactly the same with, any other website. If you get a dodgy backlink on a directory site that could be, a Christian or Jehovah's Witness forum website or something, might have great stats, but it's not anything to do with your business.
Yeah.
It's not,
it's not
related. Yeah, exactly. So it is more about the quality than the quantity. And some people will look at the reports that I send them and go, well, there's no new backlinks or anything this month. I was like, well, there is a bit of a knock-on effect. It won't probably show straight away in my reporting and stuff. And then when it does show, you'll then start to see some kind of result from that, whether it's a growth in traffic or even just a lower bounce rate or higher average session duration because the traffic's more high quality and it's higher intent. So I always say to people, it's the quality. You'd rather have 100 visitors ready to purchase your products now and maybe be educated by what you do, rather than 1,000 visitors that you're throwing shit at the wall and seeing what will stick, and 10 of them are interested and click off somewhere else and go anywhere else anyway. So it is, with everything that we do, it's about quality and not the quantity.
Yeah.
And some people base their value on the quantity of what they get rather than the quality, which I guess is human nature, but it's definitely a way of thinking that has to be somehow changed, whether that's down to us or down to the clients themselves. I'm not sure. Maybe I need to educate people a little bit more in terms of what we do and the value of it. And maybe people in our industry need to educate people a little bit more in terms of what good value looks like versus bad value and that quality versus quantity thing. So that's probably a challenge we'll always have. I don't know if we'll all ever get over that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it'll always exist. There'll always be people that spend more on their car than their business.
Yeah, definitely.
I've actually said that to someone before, where I'm like, you're going through a normal sales call and you're talking about what you offer and what you do and how valuable it would be to them, and then you get to the price and they're like, oh, I'm not paying that, it's expensive. And I was like, but if this goes right, this is how much you could get back from it. And he's like, well, I want a guarantee on that. And I was like, there's no guarantees in life. I was like, if you're going to invest in the stock market, there's no guarantee. If you're going to buy a watch, there's no guarantee it's going to go up in value. It might go all the way down. So, but saying that, there are calculated risks in life. And with marketing in general, across websites, SEO, content, PR, whatever it may be, if it's the right fit for that business, if you're working with the right people, it's a calculated risk. Yeah. And I said to him, I was like, well, what car do you drive? And he was like, oh, BMW X5. And I was like, okay, I'm assuming that cost you a lot of money, didn't it? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, in comparison, what you actually want to spend on your marketing is relatively low. So it seems that you value your car more than you do your business. And that's how it sounds. And then it puts things into perspective a little bit. But it's so interesting. And I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think there'll always be people out there who just don't want to take the risk for one reason or the other, and they beat around the bush on investing into websites and marketing. But we've turned down business before because someone, typically our leads will come to us and they'll be like, we want to do paid advertising or SEO, or they might want to do a content marketing piece. And we'll, like you said, we'll look at the website and we'll look at the brand. And if it's not right and it needs work, we'll tell them that it needs work, and then we'll point them in the right direction. We'll go, well, we have a partner who does web design. You need to start there first, because if we optimize this website, we might be sending a load of traffic to it, but it's just not going to convert. And we've done that, and we've waited for, I think, 12 months before, while a new site was built and a new brand was developed, until we actually started working with that client. And they were like, you are absolutely right. This was the best thing to do. And we got the best outcome for them. So
I think, like you say, it's a funny thing with SEO and the value thing of, they might value someone doing 30 hours at £300 a month more than someone doing 5 hours at £800, £900 a month or whatever, because they see that more hours probably correlates to more results or better results. But yeah, the whole value thing of, valuing your car, I think that's a good analogy to have. And for whatever reason, people, they want the results, but they're not willing to invest in it. But like you said, of that year that client invested in sorting out their website or sorting out whatever else they needed to do meant that they got better results in the long run. And I always feel like, for me, I'm always worried about sounding disingenuous when someone comes to me and says, I want to do digital marketing or whatever. Like, I get inquiries for social media quite a lot. I don't know why. Not interested in it. I don't offer it. It's not a way for me to try and sell them something, but I always say to them, look, before you do social media, your website needs to be bang on as well. And it can sound disingenuous because it then sounds like you're either trying to sell them more or sell them something they don't need. So I'm always kind of aware, and I do acknowledge that. But for me, my business is based on always, regardless of if it benefits me financially or not, giving people honest and the best advice I can give them. And there is clients that have come to me in the past, and very similar to what you said earlier, that turning down work and stuff, I'll give you advice, but if you then decide that advice means that you're not going to work with me and you're going to find someone cheaper or more expensive or whatever, then that's what it is. That's how it works. I'm not going to give you, or I'm not going to sell you the dream just because you then buy a £6,000 website off me. Obviously, that benefits me financially, and I can feed my child and my wife. But long term, I want to build a reputation where people can come to me and trust me. And especially if I'm working on behalf of an SEO agency or a social media agency, whatever, because they've passed it over to me, I then effectively represent the agency that's passed it to me as well. And I therefore owe it to them to do a good job as well as the client. So that's definitely something that I bear in mind. And that's a massive part of how my business grew last year, was not only the clients that came to me directly, but working on behalf of other people's agencies that they either do websites and they need someone to outsource their overflow of projects to, or, well, there's three things. The white label side of it, so they don't offer websites but want to make a little bit of money out of it extra for just managing it, or they don't offer websites and want to offer it as a service, and I can kind of fill that gap for them, whether they pass it over to me directly or not. Because like, again, social media, SEO, paid advertising, they're similar because they're in the digital marketing realm, but they're all completely different services, and they require different expertise. So because I do websites doesn't mean I'm an expert in Google Ads. Like, I hate Google Ads. I don't enjoy doing PPC. I find the interface in the back end of Google too confusing to use. There's like a million things going on. For me, building a website, I know where the tools are. I can just do what I need to do. So I'm not interested in doing that. Anyone that wants pay-per-click, I'll pass them over to people that I know. And so that's the business that I'm trying to build. And I want to be the guy that's known for websites. And if people want to invest in SEO but don't have the budget to maybe work with companies like yourselves who kind of take it to that next level, then I can be that kind of stopgap. And if they eventually do grow to that level, they're more than welcome to kind of then invest in it a little bit more with companies like yourself. I'm not doing £2,000 a month SEO clients because I'd be doing them a disservice. I probably wouldn't be getting them the results that £2,000 a month or whatever with you guys would be getting. And that's just me being totally truthful. A lot of the clients I work with are relatively small. They're smaller businesses. They're not massively established ones. So the risk for them is a little bit lower, but because they're a little bit more specific, like an electrician in Bristol, like that for me is decent because it's one guy and I have one point of communication. If it was like a B&Q or the Range or something that came to me, that would look great on my portfolio and would look great in my bank account, but there's no way I'd be able to get them results because I wouldn't know that level of intricacy and that taking to that next level and that scale, I wouldn't know where to do it with. So going back to the point on the basic level of understanding of SEO, I can build the Range a new website, but the SEO thing would be going straight over to somebody else because I'm not going to try and blag my way through something if I don't know how to do it. And I know that there is, even website projects where someone's come to me with something quite complex and said, can you do this? There has been times, like Richard Branson said, that you say yes and learn how to do it later, because that's because I believe that I can find a way to do it. That's not me blagging someone. And if I can't find a way to do it, then I'll be honest with them and say, this isn't possible. I had a guy recently, he wanted to build a website that was basically an internal system that had like a Kanban board, allowed him to do invoicing and stuff. And he was like, I want to spend about 15, 20 grand on it. I was like, just use Pipedrive. Or something like a CRM system that has that, or ClickUp or something that has all that built in for £100 a month. Like, I'm not going to sell you a 15 grand website when I can't do it. And then you get into the realm of outsourcing to other people because you're trying to, deliver these things that you've said you can do, and then it gets all messy and stuff. I'm not interested in doing that, and I'll always be honest with people. So, and I think that's, I've spoken to loads of people in the past where they're like, oh yeah, I want to have a website with you, but my domain, or I'm locked in with this web company for another year, and they won't release my domain unless I pay them 500 quid and all this kind of stuff. I've had clients come to me that have left me for hosting or SEO, or they've moved their website somewhere else. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll give you the details and you can go. Because some of them have actually come back to me because I wasn't hostile about it and they trust me. If I was a dick about it, they wouldn't have come back and I wouldn't have had that, I wouldn't have built that reputation. So that should go across any business.
Yeah.
But I think specifically in websites and what we do, it is very easy to just go, well, give me 500 quid and I'll let your website go. And then
it's so easy.
It's that reputation.
That,
it's gone.
You could,
Reputation's
anyone
shot.
could do that and people would buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
And going back to your business, has there been a challenging time where you've ever thought, shit, we're not going to get through this? And if you did have a time like that, how did you get through it?
Yeah, there was times when I first started in the first couple of years, it was like feast or famine, and it is sometimes now a little bit more like that. So March and April, I invested quite a lot of time into networking, and it went pretty quiet. I wasn't posting on LinkedIn. I wasn't doing much outbound stuff. I was still building websites and all that kind of thing, but nothing was really coming in. And I was starting to panic a little bit because I was like, well, if nothing's coming in now and I'm doing all this network and all this additional stuff that I'm doing, then where's it all going to come from? And then May and June, it's almost like everyone convenes together and says, yeah, we're going to contact Tom on the same week. And then this whole flow of referrals or people coming to me directly just all comes in at once. It's really strange, and it happens every time. And my wife always says to me, I don't know why you're panicking, because people will come back in next week and you'll be overloaded with work again. But especially in the early stages of the business, there was times when it's like, nothing's coming in, starting to panic a little bit. What do I do? So at that point, I was using a platform called Bark to purchase leads at anywhere from 20 to 60 pound a pop. I think in that year, my second year, I spent about 10 grand on it. I had a decent return on investment, but a lot of my time was chasing the 90% of people that weren't picking up the phone or responding to emails when I spent the money to buy their details. And I was like, this isn't sustainable. I can't do this forever. And then for some reason, when I stopped purchasing leads in that way, and started thinking, if I had no money, how would I market my business? So SEO, blog content, just really simple stuff that people are searching for. And then just doing like the LinkedIn stuff and the networking, face-to-face stuff, all that kind of thing, which is relatively inexpensive. It's a long-term thing. You're not going to go to a networking event and meet someone that wants a website and they're going to buy it straight away. I went to one recently and I met the director of a solicitor's. And it is all about the timing, because she was like, oh yeah, we're in the market for a new website and I'm meeting them in a couple of weeks based in Nottingham. So I think with all that kind of stuff, what you do now will have a knock-on effect, maybe a month or 2 months down the line. Similar with SEO, you do the work, Google doesn't see it straight away and it doesn't index you higher straight away. There's a knock-on effect. So that's why this year, I think being totally honest, I'm going to make more money than last year in terms of revenue. Whether my profit will be higher, I don't know. But there's going to be less turnover this year just because I'm investing in all that kind of other stuff in terms of time. But that then will hopefully have a knock-on effect because I'm building more of a reputation. And then that feast or famine thing will then slowly, hopefully, turn into a more consistent flow of things rather than having a quiet month and then a really loud month of just being balls to the wall, 12 hours a day, working non-stop. And that's ideally, we all want to be that. But yeah, just like that was one of the biggest challenges of finding a way of how can I attract people to my business rather than trying to tell people you should be attracted to my business. And I've tried things like cold calling and all that kind of stuff. Unless you're a great cold caller, which I don't particularly enjoy doing, but I think I've probably got 1 or 2 meetings out of 70 phone calls that I've made. And that's not really worked for me. It's really difficult to tell someone you need a new website without trying to just sound like you're trying to sell them a new website. So, just investing in all that kind of thing will hopefully mean that there's a more consistent flow of business coming in. And like I say, that partnering with agencies up north, down south, wherever they are, that offer a complementary service to what I offer and vice versa, has been a massive, massive growth in my business as well. So trying to grow those relationships on a bit more of an organic level. Yes, I might take more of a hit short term, but long term, I definitely believe it'll pay dividends, hopefully, quite literally. So, in terms of that challenge, It was just, I think it was just luck that I'd have a quiet week or month and then people would all kind of come back to me again. But if you're a new business and you're quiet, no one knows who you are, it's a lot more difficult. So yeah, I think people appreciate it nowadays, that investing in, whether it's time or money, into your LinkedIn profile, that's been massive for me. Face-to-face networking, getting out there and actually meeting people. There's nothing, like, we have all this technology and stuff, but I don't think there's anything quite like meeting someone face-to-face and getting to know them on a more personal level. I don't think you can't top that with any technology that you've got. So spending time doing that and building a long-term foundation for the business, rather than what I was doing in the beginning, just buying leads, because I was a commodity and it was a race to the bottom in terms of price. If I bought a lead for a plumber, again, let's just use that example, in London, he's probably been contacted by 20 other companies. If I'm 500 quid more than the cheapest quote, then he's just going to go for the cheapest one, because that's how he sees the value again. And I was stressing myself out because I was spending all this money and not getting anything back because I was not getting the work. Therefore rendering myself more quiet than I ever was. So yeah, people definitely need to invest in the organic side, I think, because I personally believe, as well as paid advertising works, whether it's, if you're an e-commerce business, I think it works well. But for me, paid advertising has never worked. I've tried Facebook ads and I've tried Google ads and stuff, and it's never really worked for me in terms of generating leads and all that kind of thing. Like I said previously, I think people know that, well, they've just paid to be there. They could be anybody. The organic side, the SEO side. If you want to build something a bit more long term, that's definitely where it should be. And that's what in the 3 years I've been in business, I've always done my own SEO on my own website. And we are eventually now, I think we're in the top 3 for web design locally. Sometimes first, it kind of jumps all the time. Yeah. Which has helped, because we've got some business from that. And then the next step is, right, Hinckley, small town, 40,000 people. Then we want to be first in Leicester, city of 300,000 people. Then we want to be in the Midlands, and you've got Nottingham, Coventry, Derby, all those kind of places. You want to be first there. So it's just about that growth all the time. And I think that's where most of my business has come from, is the organic side certainly over the last 6 months and the back end of last year. Not done anything paid wise. It's just been attracting people to me constantly, which I actually learned from a mentor that I was using at the time. And I think when you attract people to your business, they value you a lot more, and therefore they'll probably pay a little bit more as well. Whereas if you're trying to cold call someone and say, yeah, you need a new website. Well, unless you can do it for 500 quid, I'm not interested, mate. It doesn't work. Yeah. So, that's the ways that I've kind of got over that feast or famine period. That I do have, again, from time to time at the minute, but it's not as extreme as it was 2 or 3 years ago, because I've got that reputation and I know more people. I've got a bigger network. And, that network, that's essentially your extended marketing team, because they can speak to someone about, let's say, for example, they're a financial advisor. They could end up somehow talking about a website. Oh, I know someone who does a website. Go and speak to Tom. Or I know someone that does digital marketing. Go and speak to whoever. So that referral side has definitely bridged that gap between feast and famine for me, definitely.
Yeah. And you put a post out very publicly on LinkedIn on your experiences with burnout.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it was literally last week. It was, to be totally honest, I don't know if I've got some form of ADHD where my brain just cannot switch off. And I can't distinguish between whether that's life as just being a business owner by yourself and trying to build something, or if it's something more neurological where my brain just simply cannot switch off and it's on overdrive all the time. So last week, just sat at my desk and I'm thinking about, we're currently selling our house and we've got an offer on the house. Thinking about the offer on the house, thinking about my little boy going to nursery, thinking about my wife getting a job, thinking about the projects I'm working on, thinking about the clients that I'm chasing, thinking about the potential clients that I'm chasing, see if they want to go ahead, trying to prospect new clients, trying to do the accounting, trying to do the social media. All of this kind of stuff is buzzing in my head all the time. And as I was sat at my desk, I had my headphones on, I was listening to music, and I was like, my head's starting to ache, but it was like I've had it before where it's like a whole headache. It's not here or at the back, it's like my skull is aching, basically. And then there was like sharp pains going through the top of my head and the side of my head. And I was just trying to, as a bloke, as you do, you just try and ride it, I'll be all right, stick a plaster on it, it'll be all right. And then it was like 4 o'clock in the evening, and I said to my wife, I'm just going to jump in the shower, try and make myself feel better. And then my body was starting to ache, like the back of my neck was aching, my joints were aching, like muscles were aching in my body that I hadn't, like I go to the gym and stuff, but like DOMS, and then having a pain in your bicep, like it was literally here. And I was like, that's not a pain from a training pain. That's like a dull aching, like I'm fatigued. And then as I went to get in the shower, I was like, I'm just going to have a lie down. That was at 4 o'clock. I didn't get out of bed until 2 o'clock the next day. And I slept the whole time. And then the couple of days after that, I did feel better. But in the evenings, I don't know if it was a migraine. I've never had one before, but it was like a sharp shooting pain, it's like a dull pain, but in certain areas I was getting a shooting pain. And then it was my brain, it sounds stupid, but my brain was thinking about me having a headache because of all the stuff that's going on in my head. And then that cycle would continue. And then my headache would get worse because I'm constantly thinking about it and I can't switch off. I'm all right now, thankfully. But I just burnt out. I think that's what it was. I just had to admit defeat. I was in bed for 20 hours. Had like I said, a couple of headaches a couple of days after that. Had to cancel some meetings and all that kind of thing. And then because I'm ill in bed, you know, I'm not a great husband when I'm in bed. I can't do anything in the house. And I can't be the best dad because I can't play with my little boy and, you know, run around with him or take him to the park, whatever, because I'm in bed. So it was like, I have to find some kind of balance. And I'm a kind of person that I have to push myself all the time. It's like 110% or nothing. But by doing that, I'm then burning out in other areas of my life. And I can't then do all the other things that I need or want to do as well. So that's why I'm seriously looking at hiring someone to take over the website side. So I can focus on the relationship growth or the account management or the networking and the salesy side of it. And then any website projects that come in, I'm not having to do all that and build the website. So I can pass that over to someone that I trust to do it for me, which is quite difficult for me because I can't relinquish control. I have a very specific way of doing things all the time. But yeah, just I've got to admit defeat. I think I've got to do it because if I don't, the business probably will be affected then. And if I'm spending a day or two in bed, that's another day or two. Like if on average, a day in my business is worth like 500 quid. If I spend 2 days in bed, that's £1,000 lost anyway. So by finishing an hour earlier than I normally would and going to sit downstairs and play with my little boy, you know, the websites are still going to get finished. The clients will probably come back to me when they're ready at some point anyway. And yeah, just finding that balance, which for me is quite difficult, but we all definitely need to find it. And it's a strange thing because working for myself, the whole point of it was I can get up, I can work in my dressing gown, I can go to Costa, I can go and do whatever I want whenever I want, but I still strap myself into the 9 to 5 mentality because I know that if I don't do it, no one else is doing it, and then it's not going to grow. So yeah, that was my experience with burnout, and it probably happens about once a year that I get, because it was starting to affect me to the point where it felt like I had flu or a cold, like I had a sore throat, my nose was running.
Is there a trigger? Is it quantity of workload, or could it be an experience with like pushback from a client?
I think it's a mixture of everything. Yeah, it's like, for me, I either need a yes or a no. Like if you don't want to work with me, tell me to piss off and I won't keep calling you trying to get an answer. Yeah. If it's a yes, great, let's do it. Like, I'm the kind of person that if I'm saying I'm going to do something, I'll do it now. I can't leave it because I'll forget about it. And it's probably unfair for me to kind of like convey that onto my other clients because we're all different. But if someone says to me, yeah, want to go ahead with the website, for me, if that was me, I'd be like, send over the contract, send over the first invoice, we'll start today. Whereas some people like, oh yeah, I need 5 weeks because I'm moving offices, going on holiday and whatever. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, I appreciate you've got stuff going on and that's fine. But for me, I need a clarity and I need an answer. And sometimes I don't get that. And then my mind starts to play tricks and think, oh, maybe he's not seriously interested, or maybe he's taking you for a ride, or maybe he's looking at other options, or this kind of stuff. And then you pair that with everything else that I'm kind of thinking of. Just like my brain was just like, can't deal with this, just need to switch off. But yeah, I think, strangely, in my business, I probably only spend 25%, 30% of my time actually building websites. The rest of it is the business development stuff or the client relationship management and all that kind of thing. And yeah, when I tell people that, they're usually quite surprised. But I seem to spend more time trying to sell websites and build my reputation and actually building the websites, which it is quite a strange thing. But especially in websites, because sometimes the projects can depend on somebody else. Yeah. So if you don't send me the images of your office or your team or whatever, guess what? I can't put them on the site. And I hate projects dragging out. Like, ideally I would have everything in the beginning. Appreciate that's not the case, so I'll try and work with you to do it. But then I start to work myself up about it. It's like, what can I do to help, and how can I alleviate this pressure on both of us? But then I have to admit that that's not down to me. That's in someone else's control, and I can't do anything about it. I've just got to sit and wait. But then I know what happens is that later down the line, when they do come back with all that stuff, I've got another 5 websites that I'm working on, and the workload's too much. So yeah, websites is a funny, because it's not on like a retainer thing, and it's a as and when you work on it kind of thing. That element of pressure, I believe, is a little bit more heightened. Whereas if you're doing the SEO, you're like, right, these 5 clients have paid us this month. We can allocate the time every single month to what we're doing. Whereas websites, you can't do that because you don't know how long something's going to take or what someone else is going to add to their website that we've not discussed. So every single day is different, which is great. But it's just about having to adapt to that, which sometimes I can struggle with because, like I say, I need clarity and I don't always know what's going on. So that was my experience with burnout. Hopefully it won't happen again, and I'm going to try and find a way of doing it. But as I said, ultimately, if I'm not working, the money's not being earned. And that's why I probably need to enlist some help to be able to alleviate that pressure a little bit. But as I say, finding someone, because I'm quite particular, that I can trust to do that is going to be quite a challenge, I think. And plus, most people that can do websites, most of the time arguably want to work for themselves anyway. Not all of them will, because some of them like the security of a salary and being able to turn up to work and go home and leave it at the office. But a lot of them, they know they can earn a lot more money just by doing it themselves, but then they have to do all the other stuff like the business development and they have to go and get the clients, whereas I can do that and then I can pass it to someone within my team and hopefully grow it that way and slowly kind of come out of it, of that day-to-day, that hustle of building the sites and doing everything else. But ultimately it comes down to money, doesn't it? It's not, no one works for free. So I've got to try and find that balance and admit that I need help from somebody else to achieve that. So,
yeah, well, that sounds like a really exciting journey for you to go on. But thank you so much for coming on, Tom. It's been really great to have you. And
thank you for having me.
It's been really insightful as well to hear your perspective from a web side as well. So
yeah, no, thank you for having
so
me.
much.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Cheers. His website's now popping.